Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janaballabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Janaballabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tira Banachari. Jamuna Tira Banachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tira Banachari. Yamuna Tira Banachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupada Paramahansa Paribrajakachaja Stotara Sata Sri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinatha Shyamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 70. Apuryamana machala pratishtam samudram apaha pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sashanti mapnoti nakamakami. Apuryamaya machala pratishtam samudram apaha pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sashanti mapnoti nakamakami. Apuryamana machala pratishtam samudram apa pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sashanti mapnoti nakamakami. Apuryamanam, always filled. Achala pratishtam, steadily situated. Samudram, the ocean. Apaha, water. pravishanti, enter, sarve, all, sa, that person, shantim, peace, apnoti, achieves, na, not, kamakami, one who desires to fulfill desires. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, alone can achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. Purport. Although the vast ocean is always filled with water, it is always, especially during the rainy season, being filled with much more water. But the ocean remains the same, steady. It is not agitated, nor does it cross beyond the limit of its brink. That is also true of a person fixed in Krishna consciousness. As long as one has a material body, the demands of the body for sense gratification will continue. The devotee, however, is not disturbed by such desires because of his fullness. A Krishna conscious man is not in need of anything because the Lord fulfills all his material desires, all his material necessities. Therefore, he is like an ocean, always full in himself. Desires may come to him like the waters of the rivers that flow into the ocean, but he is steady in his activities and he is not even slightly disturbed by desires for sense gratification. That is a proof of a Krishna conscious man, one who has lost all inclinations for material sense gratification, although the desires are present. Because he remains satisfied in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he can remain steady like an ocean, and therefore enjoy full peace. Others, however, who fulfill desires even up to the limit of liberation, what to speak of material success, never attain peace. The fruitive workers, the salvationists, and also the yogis, who are after material powers, are all unhappy because of unfulfilled desires. But the person in Krishna consciousness is happy in the service of the Lord, and he has no desires to be fulfilled. In fact, he does not even desire liberation from the so-called material bondage. The devotees of Krishna have no material desires, and therefore they are in perfect peace. Apuryamanam achala pratishtam samudram apaha pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve na shantim apnoti na kama kami. In this verse, Krishna explains very nicely that the process of satisfying the senses is the process of remaining in the material world, of not being satisfied. We're under the illusion that if I satisfy my senses, if I fulfill my desires, I'll become happy. But we have seen again and again that those desires keep coming again and again. They never stop. And we are never satisfied. That is because we cannot be satisfied independently of Krishna. Why not? Because we are eternally connected with Krishna. The body made up of the senses is one aspect, but the real aspect is the soul. And the soul has nothing to do with the body. It has all to do with Krishna. The body is simply a vehicle. And that body also belongs to Krishna. We cannot create this body. This body is actually being controlled by superior powers. I may be able to move my senses, But if there is some disease, if there is some obstacle, then despite my desire to move and satisfy my senses, I may be restricted. That understanding is that there is a superior power who is controlling me, and the superior power is Krishna and his agents. And once we accept the material body, there is never an end to the desires. But if, even in this body, if we take to the practice of hearing and chanting, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Shakyam, Atmanivedanam, these 9 processes, hearing, chanting, remembering, offering prayers, worshipping in the temples, being the servant of the lotus feet of Krishna, being his eternal servant like Hanuman, being his friend like Arjuna, surrendering everything like Bali Maharaj. If we practice these 9 processes, then our sense gratification will not disturb us. The desire for sense enjoyment may come, but it will be tolerated. A devotee understands that as long as I have this body, desires will come. You cannot escape. But if within my heart I am fulfilled, I can resist these desires. If I see a beautiful woman, I may desire to enjoy her. It is natural. That will not stop. But if I am Krishna conscious, I can understand that this beautiful woman is just the body. The soul within that woman and the body of that woman belongs to Krishna. It is not my property. If I really want to do the right thing, I will see that woman as a spirit soul, and I will help her to make spiritual advancement. I will help her to remember that she has an eternal relationship with Krishna, and her body is not hers to enjoy or to give to others to enjoy. And if you understand this, if you understand that everything belongs to Krishna, that Krishna is the beginning and the end of everything, that Krishna consciousness is the reality of life, then no matter what disturbances come, they will not affect you, because that realization, that connection with Krishna is so wonderful, it is so liberating, because for millions and millions of births we become disconnected from Krishna. We have lived in material life where we have to suffer from fear, from old age, from disease, from death. We cannot escape. But suddenly, that is because we identify with the body, because the body is subject to old age, disease and death, not the soul. I am eternal, but I only know that if I'm actually connected with Krishna. Of course, by practicing yoga, by performing austerities, by studying the Vedas, you can come to the point of liberation. But that liberation requires a lot of hard work over many, many births. And it doesn't connect you with Krishna. It is done by your own power. But by my own power, it is very, very, very hard to overcome the desires which are offered to us by Maya, by illusion. Very, very difficult. It is like a tiger cub. A tiger cub is just a little baby. And on his own, he cannot do anything. He's totally dependent on his mother. Even when she wants to move him from left to right, from here to there, she picks him up in her mouth and she carries him here and there. And he's totally surrendered. The tiger cub in his mother's mouth is perfectly peaceful. But that mouth is very, very dangerous and very, very fierce for other animals. So in the same way, the Supreme Lord, Lord Krishna, He takes care of us when we engage in His devotional service. And this devotional service is usually kept very confidential. But by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it has become very easy by the process of chanting and performing bhakti. So, it is said that akama sarva kama va. Akama, whether you're free from desire, sarva kama va, or va, sarva kama, all desires, udaradi, tibrena bhakti yogena, yajeta purusham param. Whether you're full of desires or you have no desires, simply by performing tivrena, by worshipping the Lord by the process of bhakti, tivrena bhakti yogena, bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga means to connect with Krishna. There is no bhakti yoga without Krishna. So connecting with Krishna, yajate purusham param. Sukadeva Goswami says, just simply, doesn't matter, forget about your desires, worship Krishna, because by that one process of worshiping Krishna, you become free from material desires. And don't pretend that you're free from desires. Don't think that because I've become a sannyasi, because I've become a guru, because I've become the Math Adipati, the temple president, because I've become a devotee, because I've practiced devotional service for 50 years, now I'm free from desires. Not at all. Desires will continue to come. There is a nice example. One time, Emperor Akbar, very famous Mughal emperor of India, he asked his minister, who was a Hindu Brahmin, he said to his minister, when will my sex desires come to an end? Because he was an emperor, he was a king, so plenty of women, plenty of wives, plenty of mistresses. So he asked this Brahmana, when will this desire become free? When will I become free from the sex desire? And the Brahmana said, never. And Emperor said, I don't believe you. So they left it at that. He didn't believe him. Sometime later, one of these ministers, an old man, he was dying. He was on his deathbed. So the emperor was going to see him. So he brought his Brahmin advisor with him. And the Brahmana said, when you come to see this man who is dying, this minister of yours, bring your young daughter with you. And when you come into the room on his deathbed, watch his eyes, watch his reaction when he sees your daughter. So that was arranged, and they came into the room, and the man was lying on his deathbed, last breath, incapable of moving, hardly conscious. But as soon as the princess, who was young and beautiful, came through the door, suddenly color came into his face. He began to breathe. He became enlivened. And the emperor noticed, and he said to the Brahmana, you're right. He says, sex desire is never ending. So we have to come to this point of approaching Krishna, because he's the only one who can solve our problems. The joy, the peace, and the steadiness, sthanam, that we get by practicing bhakti is more powerful than the desire for sense enjoyment. You understand that you have something so valuable in your relationship with Krishna, it is not worth jeopardizing that value by sense enjoyment. There is no need to look for happiness elsewhere because you already have it. If you have $1,000, you don't have to look for $5, $10. You've got it. If you have Krishna, you have everything. And Krishna is able to do this. He is able to help us. He is able to purify our desires because we are his sons. We are his parts and parcel. We are meant to give him pleasure. Somehow we have misused our independence. We have come into the material world. We have become disconnected from Krishna. So he is connecting with us, and gradually, he is releasing us from our bad habits. Aham tva sarva papebhyo mokshyashyami. Me, Krishna says, moksha, I will give you liberation from what? Sarva papebhyo, from all your sins, from all your karma. And although the karma and the sins are bad enough, even more important is not so much the karma or the activities we perform, is the desire behind these activities. Sometimes the example is given, if you take a worm in a stool and you take him out, he will crawl back towards the stool because he doesn't know anything better. So when we when we engage in sense enjoyment, the desire to engage in sense enjoyment is very, very difficult to break, because it is a habit we carry with us for innumerable births. Innumerable births. But Krishna has the power and he has the understanding, and because he has been with us as our friend, next to us in our heart, in every birth that we have taken since time immemorial, because he knows us so intimately, he knows exactly how we react to any situation. Therefore, he creates a situation which helps us to become free from illusion. He breaks this bad habit we have by the arrangement of material nature, by the bodies we get, by the situation we meet. Therefore, a devotee, the very first step in bhakti, shravanam, hearing, is to understand that I am eternally connected with Krishna. So I surrender to him. And the surrendering process gives Krishna the power, gives Krishna the permission to work with us. But we have to go along. It's just like if we want to learn something and we go to a coach, we have to follow his instructions. If you want to become a top athlete, you have to perform so many exercises, so many sacrifices, and you have to surrender to it. Otherwise, you don't make it. So in the same way, once we surrender to Krishna, then Krishna is able to work his magic upon us. But if we are recalcitrant, if you don't want to do it, then what can Krishna do? He cannot do anything. But if we give him permission, because he knows us intimately, because he understands what makes us tick, because he understands how we have come to this point, he is able to bring us back. He knows the path back home for us. We are lost in the forest of material life. We have come so far away from God, so far away from our spiritual nature. We have become so addicted to satisfying the senses of this body. You look around you, 99.9% of human beings are simply engaged in sense gratification, simply satisfying the body, simply identifying with the body. Very few may identify with the mind and intelligence, but they are rare. What to speak of the animals? They have no hope. They are simply suffering the results of their karma. They are simply evolving until they get to the human form when they can exercise their independence to listen about Krishna, Shravanam, because if you hear about Krishna, then vidunoti surit satam. Whatever is Ridi antashto hiya badram, Ridi anta, within the heart, Ridi, heart, anta, inside, sta, sitting there, hi abhadram, what is abhadra, what is inauspicious. We become free from this simply by allowing Krishna to work with us. So, devotional service, spiritual advancement doesn't mean to wear a particular kind of dress. Spiritual advancement doesn't mean to live in the forest or in a cave. Spiritual advancement doesn't mean to artificially try to avoid the material world, trying to renounce the material world. What can we renounce? We are born with nothing. We die with nothing. Nothing belongs to us. If you don't own anything, what is a question of renunciation? You cannot renounce, but you can use it for the purpose for which it was created, and the creator is Krishna. And by listening from Krishna, you can understand what he desires from us. And so how to approach Krishna? Krishna says to Uddhava, na sadhyati mam yogo, that sadhyati means to make me satisfied. So Krishna is speaking to Uddhava. When Krishna ended his pastimes on this planet, he retired to the forest, and the last person who was with him was his dear friend and devotee Uddhava. And this is in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It is called the Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna says to Uddhava, and through him he says it to us, na sadhyati mam yogo, that by practicing yoga you don't really make me satisfied. Na shankyam dharma uddhava, my dear Uddhava, by shankya, by the analysis of the material world, dharma, by practicing religious principles according to the rules and regulations of Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, na swadhyayas, even by studying the Vedas, tapastyago, by performing austerities, by becoming renounced, yata bhaktir mamurjitaha. Not as much do you satisfy me with these things. You cannot satisfy me with these things as much as you can satisfy me by practicing bhakti. Now bhakti in Sanskrit means two. It doesn't exactly mean devotion. It means two. Comes from the root bhed. Bheda means to separate. So bhakti means that we are not God. That we are one principle and God is another principle. Bhakti means there is two of us. Bhakti means there is a loving interchange. There is an exchange of opinions, exchange of affection, exchange of love, exchange of trust. This is bhakti, not something which is which you can pretend. There are many so-called Vaishnavas who pretend to be great bhaktas. They are called sahajiyas. Sahaja means very easy to do. They take devotional service as very easy. Oh, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Sure, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. But that happiness depends on Krishna. We have to accept that whatever happens in our life, it is Krishna's desire for us. And we cannot understand the greatness of Krishna. We can only surrender to him and have an understanding that he is so great, so powerful, so knowledgeable, so loving to us that he has the capacity to take care of us. He has the capacity to take us out of this ocean of material life. He has the capacity to give us so much love, so much affection, so much certainty about ourselves that no matter how many material desires come into our ears, into our eyes, into our stomach, no matter how many allurements we find in the material world, we are able to resist it because that is the path of ignorance. And we don't want to be ignorant. We don't want to forget Krishna. We don't want to do anything which makes us forget Krishna. So the devotee's prayer is, please Krishna, please, I have come to you. Please don't leave me. Take care of me, protect me, no matter what happens to me. And the devotee is ready to accept anything. He doesn't think that something is happening to me is bad. Oh, why am I suffering? Why this? No, he understands that whatever is happening to me is because of my previous activities. I created this reality. Krishna did not create it. Krishna doesn't say to us to go to the material world and enjoy sense gratification. Krishna says, think of me, man mana. Put your mind at my lotus feet. Bhava mad bhakto, become my devotee. Madhyaji, worship me. Worship me. Mam namaskuru, bow down before me. So man mana bhava mad bhakto, madhyaji mam namaskuru. Mam evaisyashi satyam te parijano priyasime. I am telling you this truth because you're parijano, you're priyasime, you are dear to me. So don't forget, no matter what trouble you may come across, no matter how many desires may come, how many frustrations may come in your private life, in your personal life, in your business, whatever, in the material world, there is a point where you will be like the ocean, where they will come and it will not affect it. No matter how many rivers flow into the ocean will not become disturbed. So Krishna is that great that within one of his breaths, the whole universe is existing. Yasyaika nishvashita kalam athavalambya. Nishvashita kalam, the time, the kalam of one breath. What happens in that breath? Jivanti loma vilaja jagadandanata. Within that breath, the Jagat and the Natha, Brahma, Shiva, Maheshwara, they are living within that breath of Krishna. Can you imagine that the whole universe, the lifetime of the universe is 311 trillion years. Trillion, not billion, trillion. So one breath of Krishna, of the Mahapurusha, of Mahavishnu, is 300 trillion years. Now just imagine that a little ant is breathing, the small body, and his breath is very quick. I'm bigger than the ant, so my breath takes a little longer. Elephant, bigger than me, his breath takes longer. But where is the perspective that somebody's breath takes 300 trillion years. You cannot imagine the size of that body. That is the size of the Purusha. Loma Vilaja, from his pores, all these universes are coming. So who can understand Krishna? It is not possible. We can understand a little bit. But be sure that he has the power to make everything perfect. Thank you very much. So, we have some of our regular visitors. Major confusion. All glories to the assembled devotees. Thank you, Atmavidya Prabhu. Also today, one of our dear devotee friends, Gangadhar Prabhu, has left his body. So I don't know if you know, but some of you know him, especially Atmavidya. And so people are quite sad. Rob Ealing's Dandavats, Krishna Premavati, Dandavats Pranams. And she also says, condolences on the departure of a friend, Gangadhar Prabhu. Yes, let's pray to him that he may bless us so we can join him at the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Anna Maria, Hare Krishna, obeisances to the devotees. Vrindavan Basi, he offers a beautiful rose. Vishnivamsa, all glories to the devotees. Mandi, Hare Krishna. Albert DeVos, Vishnivamsa, surrender to Krishna only. Material attachment is so strong. Find Sumaya, find Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is contained within Maya, just like fire is within wood. You cannot see the fire, but a piece of wood is there, but the fire is there. Under the right circumstances, the wood will burn. So Maya, you cannot see Krishna there. You cannot see Krishna consciousness, but it is there. It requires a change of mentality. Good. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Please continue to comment as you like, and I much appreciate your participation, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada.